All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going deep into the world of tardigrades.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating little creatures.
You know, you sent me some excerpts from that article, The Most Resilient Creature on Earth. I gotta say, I'm hooked. These things can survive in space, like the vacuum of space, extreme temperatures, decades without water.
It's crazy, right?
It's wild. So today, what makes them so tough? And what can we learn from that? What's the big takeaway here?
Well, the first thing to know is that while they sound kind of sci-fi, tardigrades, they actually, they're all around us.
Really?
Yeah, and they go by another name, too. Water bears.
Water bears. Oh, okay. Now that's way less intimidating. I like that.
Right.
Much better. So we're talking about microscopic animals here.
Absolutely. Microscopic, but found pretty much everywhere on Earth. Scientists, they call it a cosmopolitan distribution. So they're not limited to any one specific environment. We're talking mountaintops, the deep sea, even your backyard.
No kidding. So there's this whole hidden world of water bears just teeming all around us.
Exactly.
That's incredible. You know, the article mentioned that tardigrades can handle like 1,000 times the lethal dose of radiation for a human.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, that's superhero level. What's the secret?
Well, the secret's this process called cryptobiosis. It's kind of like think of it like a biological pause button.
Huh.
So when they encounter these, extreme conditions, radiation, freezing temperatures, dehydration even, their metabolism basically shuts down. They enter this state of suspended animation.
Wow. So they're not just surviving, they're like sleeping through it.
Pretty much, yeah. They curl up into this dehydrated, barrel-shaped form, we call it a ton, and their metabolic activity just plummets almost to zero. And they can stay that way for like decades, waiting it out until conditions improve.
Decades. Wow. So there are different types of this cryptobiosis, right? It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
That's right. It depends on what they're up against. Like for dry conditions, there's anhydrobiosis, and if it's freezing, there's cryobiosis.
So they've got a strategy for everything. I mean, talk about being prepared.
Yeah, evolution at its finest.
Absolutely. Now, the article also mentions something about a special sugar and some unique proteins that help them survive. What's the deal with that?
Right, so they produce this sugar, trehalose, and it acts as a kind of protective shield for their cells when they dry out.
Okay.
And then they have these proteins that protect their DNA from damage, even radiation damage.
Interesting.
Now, here's a curious thing. Reactive oxygen species, you might know them as ROS, they're usually harmful, but they actually play a role in triggering this whole cryptobiosis process in tardigrades.
So it's like their bodies have this built-in emergency system just for survival.
Yeah, you could say that. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, how these microscopic creatures have developed these intricate systems to cope with such extreme challenges.
It really is. So then how does this all tie into their lifespan? Because I remember the article mentioning they could potentially live for a really long time.
Yeah, so in their active state, tardigrades typically only live for a few months. But in their dormant state, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Some scientists think that under the right conditions, they could possibly survive for, get this, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years.
Thousands of years. Hold on. Are you telling me a tardigrade alive today could have been around to see, ancient civilizations?
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
That's incredible. And that's all thanks to this crazy cryptobiosis thing.
It is, although there's definitely a lot more research to be done, on the upper limits of their dormancy.
For sure. But the fact that it's even a possibility, that's pretty wild. It kind of makes you think about, what it even means to be alive, and how we measure a lifespan.
Absolutely. It challenges our whole perspective.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, so we've talked about how tardigrades are like the masters of cryptobiosis, but the article you sent, it mentioned there are different types of this dormant state, right?
Right, yeah. It's not just like a one-size-fits-all approach to survival.
So can you kind of break those down for us? What are the different types?
Sure. It's like, imagine they have this whole toolkit of survival mechanisms, and each one is specifically designed for a different environmental challenge. So we talked about anhydrobiosis, right? That's their response to extreme dryness.
Right. The whole turning into a ton metabolism basically stops.
Yeah, exactly. But then when they're faced with freezing temperatures, they use cryobiosis. And it's amazing. They basically become like these tiny little ice statues. They can withstand temperatures that would completely kill most other organisms.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there. They even have a response for dealing with high salinity, changes in osmotic pressure. That's called osmobiosis.
So really salty environments.
Exactly. Most life forms would really struggle in those conditions. But tardigrades, thanks to osmobiosis, they kind of shrug it off.
So it's like they've got a specific solution for every extreme situation you could think of. Is there anything that can actually stop these guys?
Well, I mean, while their resilience is incredible, it's important to remember that even these survival mechanisms, they have their limits. And it's also worth noting that not all tardigrade species are created equal. Some are better adapted for dryness, while others are better at, surviving freezing and so on.
Oh, okay. So it depends on the species.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Now, I know scientists have been studying tardigrades for decades, trying to figure out all the secrets to their resilience. What kind of potential applications are we talking about here? How could this actually benefit humans?
Well, just imagine if we could somehow replicate the protective properties of trehalose, that sugar we talked about, in human cells.
Whoa, okay. So you're talking about creating a human version of anhydrobiosis, being able to preserve organs for transplantation without them being damaged.
Exactly. Or think about space travel. If we could understand how tardigrades protect their DNA from all that intense radiation in space, I mean, that could be huge for astronauts on long-duration missions, right?
It's mind-blowing to think that studying these tiny little creatures could lead to such big advances in, medicine and space exploration.
Yeah, it really is. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most unexpected places. And, we've learned a lot about tardigrades already, but this whole extended dormancy thing, it's still pretty mysterious, right? We talked about the possibility of them surviving for thousands of years. Is there any evidence to back that up?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I mean, 100 years, it's incredible, but thousands, that's hard to even wrap your head around.
I know. Well, there have been cases where tardigrades have been revived from dried moss samples that were over 100 years old. And some scientists think that under the right conditions, they could potentially survive much, much longer than that.
That's amazing. It makes you wonder what other kinds of things we don't know about them. What are the triggers that bring them back to life? Do they age while they're dormant?
Oh, great questions. It really highlights how much we still have to learn.
Yeah. It definitely seems like we've just scratched the surface here.
For sure.
We've been talking about all this amazing stuff about tardigrades, their crazy survival skills, the whole dormancy thing. But it makes you wonder, why should we even care? I mean, there's tiny creatures we can barely even see.
Right. But their resilience, it's not just some weird quirk of nature. It really makes us rethink what's possible for life, in the grand scheme of things, both here on Earth and maybe even beyond.
Oh, okay. I'm listening.
Think about it. Tardigrades are living proof that life can exist in the most extreme environments. I mean, they thrive in conditions that would wipe out pretty much anything else.
Right.
So, by studying them, understanding how they do it, we might gain some insights into, the potential for life in other harsh places, maybe even other planets.
So you're saying tardigrades could, help us find aliens?
Well, it's a possibility. If we know how they handle things like the vacuum of space and all that radiation, it could totally change how we think about life existing out there on other worlds.
That's pretty cool. But, okay, back down here on Earth, how can their resilience, actually benefit us?
Oh, there are so many potential applications. Think about their DNA protection, for example. What if we could apply that to cancer research? Protect human cells from damage.
Oh, right.
And their whole dehydration thing. That could lead to breakthroughs in preserving organs for transplants. Imagine that.
That would be huge. So really, these little guys could hold the key to, boosting human resilience.
It's true. They're like this blueprint for survival, and we're just starting to crack the code. And who knows what else they're capable of? Maybe their adaptations could inspire new tech, help us deal with climate change, or even find better ways to store food and medicine.
Wow. This has been an amazing look into the world of tardigrades. It's really been fascinating.
I agree. It's been a pleasure talking about these amazing creatures with you. And, we've learned a lot today, but there's still so much more to discover. Think about it. Their long-term dormancy, their adaptations, all of this could change our understanding of life itself.
Absolutely. I mean, tardigrades, they make you question everything we thought we knew about life, surviving, even time itself. What other secrets are they hiding? Right.
Uh,
Just waiting to be discovered.
It's a great question. Scientists will be trying to figure that out for years to come, and who knows, maybe they'll find out tardigrades can do even more impossible things than we already know about.
It's amazing to think about all that. It really shows you just how incredible the natural world is. And it reminds us that there's always more to learn, more to explore, even in the tiniest creatures. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of tardigrades. Until next time, keep exploring.